Hey folks, I decided to make a benchmarking video comparing my old 4790K to the newly released Coffee Lake platform with the 8700K. I mainly did it for myself, but then I figured out, hey, there might be also other people having the same questions. Is it worth upgrading my old platform to the new one? Will I have more frames? It's a kind of big investment because you're switching like soccer platforms. You will have to buy new motherboard, new memory, and yeah, since a lot of the reviewers since the Coffee Lake platform came out only made like 1080p benchmarks, I figured I will do my own because I'm playing in 440p. And I made a Reddit thread about that, doing the benchmarks, and a lot of people were like, it will be GPU bottlenecked. I agree, in most cases it is, but then again, in a lot of cases, there is a difference. So, and for me, 1080p is, I don't know, it's like 2005. It's not like... well, a lot of people are still using 1080p, I get that, but for me it's like very, very old. So I decided to do a couple of games. I asked which games people want to see on the Reddit sub forum in the PC Master Race, and we got quite a few. I didn't take every game suggested because in the end it would be like very too extensive. So the testing methodology here on the parkour games I took is wherever possible ultra settings, because if I play something I want every bar, every setting to be the max. I'm not satisfied if it's not locked, not to the max. If it's not to the max and my rig can't run it, I have to buy new hardware to make it run. So we're playing in 2560 440p resolution, ultra settings wherever possible. This means, is there anti-aliasing, is there TXAA, whatever is possible on ultra. Just push the bar to the right until it can't go anymore to the right. Viewing distance max, textures high quality max, shadows, etc. For example, ShadowOfWar, it has extra 4K HD textures. I put the pack on that. I put the HD 4K pack also on RainbowSix, on the Division, wherever anything is possible. I get that there might be instances where it might not be like really comparable because other people are not like doing this what I'm doing it, but well, that's it. And I see it might be GPU bottlenecked because at those high resolutions and quality settings, the CPU won't have a big saying on those parts. So yeah. So without further doing, we got the specs down here. I did the runs once on my old rig with a 470K, 4790K, and then on the Coffee Lake platform. And at the very end, I also did tests with the Coffee Lake platform with only 4 cores. So I disabled 2 cores to see like how the IPC is doing compared to the Devil's Canyon 4790K. So the first game was ShadowOfWar, the newly released Middle-earth game from, I don't know, Warner Brothers it was. So the difference here are not that high. You can see like in orange is the 8700K, and in blue we have the 4790K CPU running. So minimal advantages over the min, max and average frames on both CPUs. The game is mostly... it doesn't look even nice in my opinion on highest settings. So it doesn't use too much CPU, it seems here. Going over to The Witcher, since I saw the benchmark from Digital Foundry going through the main city, Novigrad, I had expected a bigger impact on the frames here, but it seems it isn't, because it's GPU bottlenecked on those resolutions also. So on ShadowOfWar I made like the benchmark in there, and in Witcher here I walked through the city in the same parkour setting that I walked like on both rigs, to show the difference. Not that much, but anyway, the average frames is a little bit higher on the 8700K. Going to the next slide, we have a RainbowSix Siege with a HD 4K texture pack. Also here, not that big of a difference, but it is a little bit of a big difference, right? So you have about 10 frames more on average and max, doing the benchmark within the game. Next slide, the Division. A bit more of a difference in this game here. I also did the in-game benchmark on this one here using NVIDIA PC SAA, I think, shadows, ultra settings, also here 4040p. Quite a big max FPS difference. A little bit on the average, and the minimum might feel, people feel the minimum setting, the minimum frames in games. Like if the frames are suddenly dropping to below 60 or near 60 FPS, even if you don't see the FPS, you kinda notice a little bump in the screen in the frame times, which is annoying in my opinion. Going on with GTA 5, doing the in-game benchmark in this game. Also here, not much of a big difference. You see the 4790K had a 10 FPS almost lead in the min FPS department. Not sure how this got through, but I suspect also in other games you will see like hugely low min FPS. It might be some loading, or how when I stopped or started the benchmark to run. Oh, by the way, I recorded everything with Fraps, or mostly if I could with Fraps, to get like the min, average and max FPS out of it. Ashes Ashes of Singularity, the newly expansion, Escalation. I firstly did the graphic benchmarks on this one here, as you see the lower half of the table. A little bit of a difference in the average frames, huge difference in max, not so much in minimum, as I just said. Not sure how the minimum frames gathered there, maybe at the end or the beginning when I pressed the button to start the Fraps recording. And yeah. And a little bit, and then later I did the only CPU benchmark, which was on DX12. And you see the 13 FPS lead on the Coffee Lake platform. Going further on the Counter-Strike Go game, a lot of esportler and people who take this game more seriously, more competitively, are saying like 300 FPS is what you should have, because then it's smoother for them or whatever. The game is so old, it has some frame times in the back that's for some reason people are trying to achieve high FPS in this game to be better. Those FPS here also recorded with higher settings, whatever was possible, on 4040p, on max, ultra, super duper. You see quite the lead on average and max FPS. Then again, on the minimum, as I just said, it might be something when I started to press the recording button for Fraps. So the next game, we have Watch Dogs here. The frames speak for themselves, not that much of a difference in average, but in the minimum it was quite huge, and also as you see in the max FPS. Battlefield. Still a lot of people playing Battlefield. this was recorded on Argonne Forest. Was it Argonne? Or maybe it was Battlefront. I'm confusing now. On the forest map, anyway. 32 versus 32 players. Quite a huge edge here also for the 8700K platform. Oh, by the way, I probably would have had much more max FPS, but even though I disabled G-Sync, I disabled V-Sync, and I disabled the frame limiter, the game was stuck at my refresh rate, which is 165. So I couldn't get higher than this. So I probably would have hit a higher wall if I had managed to remove the obvious frame limit. Also, the min FPS is very interesting. Going further to the probably most played game under Shooter Gamer and friends at the moment, public unknown players Battlegrounds, Battle Royale. So it was very difficult to record anything for this game because, well, you join a game, you have rain, you have no rain, you have fog, you have no fog. And then it depends where you land. Will there be more people? Will there be not so many people? Will there be explosions, etc. blah blah. So it's very difficult to record this game. So what I did is I just recorded at the starting area, as you see. And I did 2 tests with this one. I did one test with the ultra settings, everything on max. But obviously no one is playing like this because the game is so badly optimized that they well, they put the settings down to have higher frames and a smoother gameplay. That's how bad the game engine is optimized. And I did also a test with you, which you can see here in orange, with only the viewing distance and textures is ultra, everything else is on low. So obviously you load up into the map and then people are popping up here and there until you have like 100 people there sitting. And over time the frames will obviously go down because, well, they have your GPU and CPU later in their perspective has to calculate less or more things. So as you can see on the Devil's Canyon platform, it has 78 compared to 90 FPS, and then later with lower details, 100 to 140. I also later like flew around and then landed on a house and went inside the house, but I didn't record this because it's like not conclusive with all the aforementioned issues that might be there, like more people, fog, etc., rain. And in the house I had with a 8700K about 140 to 150 FPS, and with a 4790K about 80 to 90 in the house. So that's still, well, it is a huge difference. The game feels for me completely different if you play it with 80 FPS or 140. So a big win in a public enemy, public unknown battleground game for the Coffee Lake platform. So RainbowSix Siege. Alright, let me see. Okay, this was the testing parkour with like 4 cores on the Devil's Canyon and 6 cores on the Coffee Lake platform, and then I went ahead and wanted to test the IPC of those 2 platforms and CPUs, and made a couple of game tests with 2 disabled cores on the Coffee Lake platform. So the following slides you see are with 4 cores on the 8700K and 4 cores on the, well, obviously the Coffee Lake platform, Devil's Canyon, sorry. Well, you don't see much of a big difference here. I don't believe Siege is a CPU-bound game. So as you can see here too, quite similar to the first test with 6 cores. Then we had the Division, a slight edge here on the in-game benchmark, on the average FPS, huge lead on the max FPS, and about 9 FPS more on the minimum FPS department. it's quite nice. I mean, you see a little bit of a difference. Ashes of Singularity, 4 cores here, 4 cores there, not that much of a difference. Almost not noticeable. Going over to GTA 5. Also here, I don't know why a lot of people say this is like the CPU benchmark game. It's not, at least not at those settings I play. Might be at 1080p or like lower resolution, lower details, but doesn't seem to be the case on those settings here. Then we have Battlefield 1, which is heavily GPU bound with 32 players versus 32 players in the game, which is 64. I can do the math, yay. And you see quite a huge difference here with only 4 cores on the 8700K in every department. Min, be it min, average and max. So if you stick playing those games and considering upgrading, this is definitely worth. And then as last slide, we have public unknown battleground. And also here you see kinda a good difference. This is also in the starting area with ultra settings in the blue and only view distance and textures on ultra, everything else on low in orange, on the orange bar. Also here, I went into a house after landing down and scavenged a little bit around, grabbed some weapons, had a fight. The FPS in the house on the 4790K was about 70 to 80, sometimes it dropped down to 60. And then on the 8700K, on ultra settings it was about 90 to 100, and then again on low settings only with view distance and textures on ultra about 140, 150, so a lot, well, a huge difference. So yeah, that were the benchmarks. Is it worth upgrading? It depends which game you play, and if you're an enthusiast, if you want something new in your rig, because the Devil's Canyon platform is like 3 or 4 years old, and you have like to consider you overclocked your Devil's Canyon platform to 4.5, 4.6. Some good batches made like 4.7, 4.8, and it has only 4 cores. And if you get like the Coffee Lake platform, you most certainly will get 5 GHz. And if you have like a really good chip, maybe 5.1, 5.2. So I made those tests here with reduced clock speed on the 8700K, and on the last slides with only 4 cores and 6. If you would switch to a new platform and pay like $800, you will have 2 more cores and a lot more clock speed, because you will most certainly achieve 5 GHz. And then you will also have faster RAM. The memory doesn't make that much of a difference, I believe. I think at like 3200 there's like no FPS gain anymore, anything above that. But you have like to consider, if you do the switch, you will have like an advantage in every edge, because like you don't buy a new car and run it like in lower gear. You make advantage of everything it has. So if I would have made the tests here with like 6 cores and 5 GHz, my CPU can do 5.1 GHz, and if I would have made the tests with those speeds, the lead would have been more substantial in every game, I believe. Alright, yeah, thanks for watching. This is like the first time I did a video like that. I didn't want it to make that long, but in the end we ended up like for 20 minutes. I can't do any more tests with 4790K, and but if you have any more suggestions, but I have still the data like from the Devil's Canyon platform. If you have any more suggestions to make like any more benchmarks with the Coffee Lake platform, feel free to yeah, write down in the comments, and I can look into this and make those. And yeah, thanks. Enjoy your day, guys.